went through your mind? Did you think the punishment was appropriate? Your thoughts, first of all.
Yeah. So in game flow of watching that game, I didn't notice much. Very similar to anybody watching a basketball game, almost every other possession, people fall to the ground. But then when you see the slow mos and the replays and the freeze frames, that's when you see like there was contact that happened. And I think it's first and foremost very important to note that any contact that happens above the head, to the head, we've seen people take elbows to the face. And in this instance, you see the fist to the neck area.
A recent conversation between two basketball analysts turned to the incident involving Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark, who was struck in the throat area during a game, an act that led to a league suspension. Both analysts were asked to weigh in on whether the punishment fit the situation and what the moment revealed about officiating in the league. One analyst, a former professional player with more than 2 decades of experience around the women's game, explained that in real time, watching the game unfold normally, the contact did not stand out much, since players fall to the floor on almost every possession in basketball.
In this instance, you see the fist to the neck area. All of that is out of bounds. It's not okay, right? But I do think that this situation here, given the nature of the flow of the game, that both of the players got up, they continue to play. Like it didn't seem, I guess first I should say this. The referee should be hyper vigilant to matchups, but also to games and to also players. And in that instance, when you see a team that just went, and I believe there were 5 technicals in the game that they matched up 2 days prior, they should have a hyper awareness to like, hey, if there's something physical.
It was only after slow motion replays and freeze frames that the extent of the contact became clear. She stressed that any contact above the shoulders or to the head is unacceptable regardless of context, and that a closed fist making contact with the neck falls squarely outside acceptable physical play. She noted, however, that both players got back up and continued playing as though nothing significant had happened, which raised a broader point about officiating awareness.
Physical, we should be in control. And what we have noticed over the course of the WNBA season is that there's this imperative to call more fouls because this is a part of the WNBA boom, right? Like we're having the highest scoring WNBA season because they're calling fouls so that they can increase freedom of movement. They can protect shooters. Like this is the evolution that the NBA had maybe a decade or 2 ago that the WNBA is going through now because more points means more fans and we want to make the fans happy, right? But even though we are having these imperatives,
Given that the two teams had already faced off days earlier in a game with several technical fouls, referees should have been especially alert to tension between the rosters. She pointed out that the league has been calling more fouls this season as part of a broader shift meant to increase freedom of movement and protect shooters, mirroring changes the NBA made roughly a decade or 2 earlier, since higher-scoring games tend to draw more fans. Even so, an increase in the number of fouls called does not necessarily mean officials are keeping firm control of physical play, and she suggested the league still lacks a clear standard for handling high-tension matchups like this one.
Even though we are having these imperatives, the game doesn't feel like it's in control. The WNBA is known consistently to be physical, but you have more fouls, but do those fouls mean that you are in control of the game? And I feel like in that instance, because we haven't had a good precedent set, or at least an area of emphasis to make sure, like in these matchups, in these scenarios, how do we maintain control? Now it puts the league in a position to do something that it rarely does. And did the league have every right to do so when they see contact above the shoulders? Absolutely. But it was kind of like a snowball effect.
She acknowledged the league had every right to step in once it saw contact above the shoulders, but noted the situation snowballed, given the players and storylines involved. She added that, as an analyst, moments like this can feel exaggerated in ongoing coverage, even though players themselves often move past incidents quickly as the long season continues. The conversation then turned to whether jealousy or resentment among players has contributed to the rough treatment Clark has received.
Like a snowball effect that I think, had greater implications because of the players involved, because of the narratives that were coming out. And so I think it's just tough because being an analyst, it's like these hot and button issues that the players, in some ways have moved on from because it's a long season. There are more games. I mean, I followed the next Indiana Fever game because my sister was playing against, the Indiana Fever. Like players move on because these things tend to happen in sports and the league has every reason to adjudicate what they see fit. But
one analyst acknowledged some resentment likely exists, though not from most players, given that many athletes spent years building the league before a single player began receiving an outsized share of attention and praise. At the same time, he argued that a rising league lifts everyone involved, comparing it to how NBA players eventually benefited from the attention generated first by earlier superstar rivalries and then by later transcendent stars. In response, the other analyst offered a comparison to how rookies and rising stars are treated across sports generally, noting that entering any league as a heavily hyped newcomer, whether in this year's draft class or in years past, typically invites players trying to prove themselves against the presumed top talent.
Players move on because these things tend to happen in sports, and the league has every reason to adjudicate what they see fit. But it just feels like it's a little bit tough because our conversations stick, and our conversations are either doors opening or doors closing to to missing, I guess, some of the magic of what we're experiencing. And so I hope, you know, we live in a society where multiple things can be true, but at times it's difficult to communicate or to convey that, you know?
Well, you might not have heard the show last week because you're a very, very busy woman and you're usually on TV when I'm on TV or radio or whatever. But I had to check a couple of callers that were called.
She recalled that a previous Notre Dame standout who entered the league with significant hype and celebrity attention received similar physical treatment early in her career, and that a longtime mentor of hers, a decorated former player, both absorbed rough treatment and returned it when necessary. In her view, any player facing that kind of pressure has the right to defend themselves, and being challenged physically after reaching a top position is not new in women's basketball or in professional sports more broadly. She added that she tries to remain analytical and consider multiple perspectives, noting she has personal relationships with both Clark and the player involved in the incident, and that all of the athletes involved are simply trying to compete and do their jobs, even though public narratives sometimes turn players into symbols rather than competitors.
That were calling and, talking about Andrea Carter more so than yourself. But I told them that y'all two are the best in the business. I love y'all dearly. Y'all are my sisters. And particularly with y'all and Monica McNutt, no matter what my opinions may be, I'm deferential to y'all when it comes to the NBA. You watch WNBA. You watch it night in and night out. You played in the sport, former top draft pick in the sport. You've achieved big things in your career, and you know this sport backwards and forwards. All three of you do. And so when I took the position last year,
the first analyst pushed further, noting that in his travels, he frequently hears fans, many of them white, express concern about how Clark is being treated and suggest a racial dynamic is at play, even if it cannot be proven. He pointed to the gap between her roughly $16 million in outside endorsement earnings compared to typical player salaries under the league's new collective bargaining agreement, suggesting some believe this financial disparity fuels resentment that shows up in physical play. He asked whether the comparison to earlier players who faced rough treatment still holds given these added financial and racial dynamics now being raised by fans.
Three of you do. And so when I took the position last year, when there was some Caitlin Clark issues, like, listen, there's some jealousy. It's not everybody. It's not most, but there's some resentment there. On one hand, I understood it because I said, hey, you know what? There's ladies that's been in this league for years that did everything they could to uplift and build the sport to this point, and then everybody wants to throw all the praise and all the acclaim in Caitlin Clark's direction, so that's going to build some resentment. But on the other hand, a rising tide lifts all boats. And just like folks in the NBA...
The second analyst responded that women in competitive sports face different expectations than men when it comes to on-court rivalry versus off-court relationships, explaining that competing hard against a fellow player, even trying to knock them down competitively, does not reflect how players treat each other outside the game. She said she was quick to publicly praise Clark over a moment involving her shoe brand, reflecting a broader sense among players that Clark's popularity, along with that of other prominent young stars, brings sponsorships and attention that benefit the whole league. She described the league's players as a close-knit group that has long banded together to advance the sport, and said that dynamic has not changed now that more money is involved.
For her wife and so many different things. Now, one thing Sophie stated, and we're going to play the clip here in a minute. Sophie stated, this is the entertainment business. This dinner what you sign up for. What did your boy John Liquidator tell you? We get hate. Well, I can't speak for everybody else. I get hate emails, hate comments all damn day. So, pull up. That's just how I'm feeling. Now, with that being said,
She also pushed back gently on the idea that her own on-air commentary is shaped by her race or gender rather than pure analysis, while acknowledging that her background does give her a distinct perspective to draw on when relevant. A wave of stories broke across the WNBA recently, with both Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham drawing heavy attention online. While much of the conversation centered on Clark, less focus has gone toward dissecting exactly what Cunningham said in her own remarks, despite comments that many view as a direct jab at head coach Stephanie White.
a lot of these women that are professional athletes and get way more notoriety than your boy John Liquidator, there's probably 10x what I get. And if you can't handle that, y'all got security and stuff. And like, I don't know. But to me, kind of signed up for it. You know, when you decide to pick up a basketball and want to turn professional, when you want to coach a team, a professional team, you kind of...
Reports circulated earlier in the week suggesting White allowed a player to take blame publicly rather than stepping in to defend her, a decision that drew criticism from observers. Amid that backdrop, Cunningham addressed the broader topic of criticism athletes face, stating plainly that dealing with public scrutiny simply comes with the territory of being in a visible, entertainment-driven profession. She noted that professional athletes with far larger platforms than an average commentator often receive far greater volumes of negative attention and argued that anyone stepping into a high-profile athletic or coaching role should expect that reality going in.
You know, see, what happened was people like Stephanie White and others are mad that now the WNBA is a mainstream sports now. See, back in the days, y'all can say all you want, the WNBA was mainstream, and it just wasn't mainstream. It was a handful of people that watched the games, and it wasn't all that. Now, for their inaugural season, maybe a little back then, but now they're full. I mean, they get more reach than damn me baseball. Yeah, some WNBA games get more.
She suggested that some resistance to this shift comes from people uncomfortable with how mainstream the league has become. She pointed out that in earlier years, the league had a much smaller and more niche audience, while today it draws attendance and viewership numbers that rival or exceed many established professional sports leagues, including notable growth even beyond traditional benchmarks like baseball.
Viewership than the baseball. So with all that being said, this is what Sophie had to say. And then we're going to play and react to a little bit what Caitlin Clark had to say, but we got people like Stephen A. Smith, Shanae Agumake speaking out against Caitlin Clark. We got the Kelsey Plum thing. So much stuff to talk about, man. I'm going to try to get through all the content and catch up today. So bear with me, guys, and just please watch the videos if you can.
Well, it's not like I was on vacation.
Separately, additional storylines were building involving commentary from figures like Stephen A. Smith and Chini Agumike regarding Clark, along with an ongoing conversation involving Kelsey Plum, all part of a packed news cycle within the league.
I was rotting in my bed. I feel better. Just kind of waiting for my energy and this headache to kind of go away a little bit. But I'm here, and so that's great.
What's it like to see yourself become a meme in real time?
Hey, so goofy. Like,
What the hell?
so goofy. Like,
in a separate interview segment, Cunningham discussed her recent time away from the team, describing several days spent resting while recovering low energy, joking that she'd mostly stayed in bed and had been relying on family members to keep her updated on outside news. She reflected on having unexpectedly become part of a viral meme trend, saying she found the whole thing amusing even though she hadn't anticipated it spreading as widely as it did, attributing it simply to how quickly things spread online.
everyone, it's getting worldwide views now, and so it's just been kind of fun to see. But honestly, I've been like dying in my bed, so I haven't really seen. My mom's keeping me up to date on everything, but it's funny, it's cool. I didn't even mean for it to blow up like that, but you know, the internet does what the internet does.
Do you have a favorite one of the ones you have?
Yeah, Statue of Liberty, dude, that is my favorite one. I feel like we need to change that.
Did you see the one with the White House posted with the president in it? And do you have any thoughts
on it? You know, I think everyone around the world is posting it. Every company.
Asked which version of the meme she liked best, she named a Statue of Liberty-themed edit as her favorite, joking that a change might be in order regarding that symbol specifically. When asked about a version referencing the White House and a political figure, she noted that many organizations worldwide had joined in on the trend, and that she didn't read into it much beyond one more group participating in something widespread.
Every company has done it. They're just the ones that also get on board, and so I don't really think twice about it. I think they're just another group who is posting about it.
I think our fans voted a lot of players in the top 40, which just shows how much they care.
Oh, no.
But I'm proud of them.
Oh, no. Don't tell me that they edit the damn. Y'all done edit the thing, man. Bro, the Indiana Fever is editing their press conferences. They're definitely cutting out what these players are saying.
She also touched on all-star recognition for teammates, expressing pride that fan voting had pushed several players into the top rankings, calling the results well-earned and a reflection of how much supporters care. At one point during the exchange, frustration surfaced over how team-produced press conference footage had reportedly been edited, with suggestions that portions of players' actual comments had been cut from official releases.
These players are saying. We watching Tony East, bro. We watching Tony East, bro. They edited it.
Dying in my bed, so I haven't really seen. My mom's keeping me up to date on everything, but it's funny. It's cool. I didn't even mean for it to blow up like that, but you know, the internet does what the internet does.
Do you have a favorite one of the ones you have?
Yeah, Statue of Liberty, dude, that is my favorite one. I feel like we need to.
Asked how the team planned to use a short break before an upcoming game, Cunningham said that despite her own absence, the group had continued pushing hard in practice, describing the roster as one that rarely takes time off and instead keeps building momentum day after day. When asked what kind of support the league provides players in managing online negativity, she said she wasn't sure the league offered much in that regard, noting that official statements can only go so far.